How does your personality change depending on the situation that you're in? And how does your personality stay the same? Our final two theories look to answer those questions. Social cognitive focuses on how situational forces influence our personality, and trait theory focuses on our consistency of our personality traits. These are the more modern approaches to understanding personality, according to psychologists, moving away from the more historical look that we saw with psychodynamic and the humanist perspective. So let's dive in and start by looking at the social cognitive perspective first. Social cognitive perspective focuses on the situation and how we think about that situation being what is going to then drive our behavior. And behavior, or the motivation behind our behavior, is really what we're describing when we're using the phrase personality. Now, that's not to say that every situation is going to cause us to be different according to the social cognitive perspective either. We are often going to see consistency in our behavior because it's being mutually reinforced, like in the reciprocal determinism theory. Reciprocal determinism is the idea that personality is shaped by the interaction of behavior, cognitive, and environmental factors. So, for example, if you engage in a behavior regularly, let's say you play a sport like soccer, that is going to be mutually reinforced by your thoughts and your environment. Because if you play soccer, you might also have friends that play soccer. And when you're thinking about playing soccer, you might seek out those friends. When you're with those friends, you might be thinking about going to go play soccer. When you go to play soccer, you're probably thinking about that activity and you're probably with those friends. So those three factors are mutually reinforcing each other consistently, and that's why we see that behavior continue over time. And so that's really the idea behind the social cognitive perspective, how we think about ourselves and how we think about the situations that we're in. So when it comes to the self, there are some different self-concepts that are going to influence our behavior. Our self-efficacy, for example, our belief in our ability to be successful at something, is going to influence how hard we try. If you have high self-efficacy for, say, sports, when learning a new sport to play, you might stick with it and therefore be more successful than if you have low self-efficacy, where you're more likely to give up and, kind of through a self-fulfilling prophecy, not be successful at what you're trying to do. Your self-esteem plays a role in that as well. Your perceived self-worth is of course then going to influence your behavior. And your self-concept, your collection of beliefs about yourself, including your self-esteem and your self-image, of course is going to then influence how you choose to behave in the world around you. Now obviously those can change from situation to situation, but trait theory posits that our personality stays relatively the same. We have distinct traits that persist over time and across different situations. One of the most popular theories in psychology when it comes to trait theory is the Big Five. The Big Five, or the five-factor model, identifies 5 major categories of personality and measures them on a continuum of high to low. So for the first one of agreeableness, someone who scores high in agreeableness is going to be characterized by warmth, kindness, and cooperativeness. On the low end of agreeableness, it might be someone who is maybe a little bit cooler towards others, maybe more suspicious and less helpful towards other people. The trait of openness is going to focus on how open to new experiences someone is. So someone who scores high is going to like to try new things, be very curious and imaginative, where someone who scores low might prefer routine and sticking with what they know. Extroversion is how outgoing somebody is, so scoring high means that they're likely very sociable and assertive and emotionally expressive, where someone who is low is going to be essentially an introvert. They're going to be maybe a little less outgoing, less social, or preferring a smaller social circle. Conscientiousness focuses on how organized an individual is. So someone who scores high is probably going to be very diligent and self-disciplined and is going to be more organized than someone who scores low, who might be a little bit more disorganized and careless. And the final category is emotional stability or neuroticism. Someone who scores high in neuroticism is going to have a lot of emotions and likely a lot of negative emotions, where someone who scores low in neuroticism is emotionally stable. So we see more resilience in those emotions, maybe less extremes in those emotions than someone who's scoring high in this category. So those are the 5 traits that are measured on the Big Five, and there are personality tests or personality inventories that you can take that can tell you where you fall when it comes to these 5 factors. There are a wide variety of different self-report questionnaires that are used to assess personality traits, but the Big Five is known as one of the more valid and reliable measures, because there are also sub-traits in the Big Five that have been identified using a technique called factor analysis, where you take closely related personality traits and group them together based on those commonalities, and we can see that in the breakdown of the Big Five test. So these are the final theories of personality. Between Freud's psychodynamic theory, the humanist theory, social cognitive, and trait theory, all of them have merit. But the question really comes down to, which one do you feel best explains who you are? So thank you so much for watching, and as always remember, be kind to your mind.